Welcome back to the Air Crown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice little new year, baby, on Saturday, the 1st of January, 2022. From the future over here, it's a new year and new me, and everything's the same. Everything's literally the same. What the hell? I was lied. I want a refund, and who the hell do I email about this nonsense? Anyways, we got plenty to talk about today because Bitcoin and all of the cryptocurrency, all markets have closed their monthlies, their bi-monthlies, their quarterlies, their semi-annuals, and of course their yearlies as well. So with that in mind, we have a big one today, and we'll be following up on a much more long-term focused analysis tomorrow. Today is going to be sort of a mix, but we're going to integrate, of course, short and medium-term time frames as well. So I'll go into a lot more depth tomorrow in the very, very long term, but today we'll just kind of touch on the most important things to be aware of. So with that in mind, again, wish you the happy and healthy start to this nice little new year. It's been an absolute pleasure being here over the past year in 2021. Phenomenal year in many ways, terrible years in many other ways as well. But as far as this community goes, man, it has been the absolute highlight of my life and of this year, and really do want to express my deep appreciation for that, for everyone who's been a part of this, because it's just been, well, fucking amazing. So without further ado, let's get into it right now. Start off with the CrownChain application. Of course, it can be found at app.crownchain.net. There is a link in the description below, and there's going to be a humongous update coming in just a couple days here, actually. I believe on the 3rd or 4th of January. So just literally 2 to 3 days from right now, and there's going to be like a plethora of new features, of which I'm incredibly excited to be speaking about, but I'll hold off on that for right now because I do want to make this stream as relatable as possible in terms of time. So what else should I let you know before we get into it? Of course, we do have our sale going on for the end of the year, essentially 20% off of all the programs. I want to make sure that you understand that all of the programs here are accompanied by promotional videos that kind of let you know what to expect with all these programs. Just showing them off really quickly right here in the Crown Trading store. And of course, you know, at the end of the day, understand that all of the programs, all of the indicators, there is no such thing as a magic pill. It's going to require a shit ton of metrics, shit ton of effort and work on your own behalf. But hey, if you do put that in, then we found, especially with the TA program, which is typically what people are looking for when they are trying to, I guess, graduate into a bit of a trader's life. It typically takes about a year, 2 years and a half to kind of get where you want to be. So with that in mind, I want to now get into the minutia over here and show off a very brief glimpse of the new platform, or the new update, I should say, which is going to allow you all this customization features, but more importantly, we're actually be able to show hourly data as well as daily data for all of the major market metrics. We'll also be including a few more as well. So there you go. Anyway, so leverage ratio, again, this is rather concerning to myself, as we are quite literally at all-time highs for this. And not only is it at all-time, it's like been consistently making new highs whilst also being at new all-time highs for about a week straight now, which is, you know, usually going to be resolved to the downside as far as price action goes. In terms of the last year of price action, all of the reads that have been essentially above about 0.17 have resulted in downside moves, major downside moves, by the way, at minimum about 20 and more like about 30 to 40% on a lot of these ones, all of them except for one iteration. That one iteration was actually on the lowest of all of those reads at literally just 0.17%, which was, of course, your bear trap, your phenomenal bear trap of the summer when Bitcoin went all the way from 30,000 to 53,000 bucks within like a month or so. Pretty damn powerful move. But all of the other ones where it essentially been even a little bit higher than that, and right now again we are at literally the highest levels ever, have been resulted in some pretty nasty downside moves. So I think that is rather important to be kind of reflective upon, because, well, you know, while basically a bull market is a lot more easy on the soul, well, at the end of the day, do you have to make the other considerations as well, of course. And Bitcoin can, of course, pull back rather significantly. And if I'm giving my general thoughts on this market just in one sentence, basically what I think is that 40,000 is going to be the 30,000 that we saw over the summer, basically, where Bitcoin's probably going to, you know, maybe test it a few more times, something like that. And hopefully, you know, fingers crossed for the bulos right there, it does not get lost. And personally speaking, I do think that Bitcoin doesn't close any major timeframes below $40,000. And of course, when we do look at the medium-term timeframe soon enough, you know, there is still a bit of hopium for the short term here, which will be giving it its due diligence. On top of that, the global open interest, a very similar interpretation here as well. Now, I would say that there's one sort of, I wouldn't say it's like a counterpoint, but a bit of a nuance with it. And that is a sense, and let's actually go to this chart over here. I think this one's just gonna be a little more clear for this demonstration, but basically, I'm referring to the bottom left pane. referring to this one right here, so remove my face. And you can see that anytime that we have seen the open interest basically get anywhere above about 13 billion or so, they've all been resulted in a downside move. So that is a bit of a counterpoint to what I spoke about over here on the global leverage ratio, where we actually did see one iteration with relatively high leverage ratios resulting in an upside move. Now, if you compare that to the open interest during that time for that move, again, that would be this over here in July of this summer, you can see that the open interest is actually rather low in comparison. So I think that's a little bit more of a sombering detail right there. Of course, if you also do want to kind of fit a bit of a regression from our last few major lows on the open interest chart, you will notice that they actually do correlate rather well with our actual lows on price action. I'm talking about, this area right here from that first major May dump. Then of course our September higher low right here on the weekly. And then more recently this December, a low that you did see from 4th of December, major massive dump out in just one day. Now that would imply, of course, that if open interest does come back down around there, well, maybe it is another good bounce area, but because open interest is actually rather far away from it right now, it makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of see that in the interim. So again, I do want to be as neutral when presenting this information as possible. It's up to you as a highly esteemed trader or just a person looking at this market to make your own decisions for yourself, as only you can be able to make the best decisions for yourself. No one else can do that for you. Not me, not no one, not fucking maybe God, but maybe not anyone under that, not anyone who doesn't actually know what the fuck, is exactly your trading preferences and personality and, and investment as well. So with all of that in mind, let's go back on over here. I think that this chart is just as simplistic as possible, and it honestly gets a point across as best as possible as well. And it's this. No, it's not this. Hold on. It's this. It's this one right here. And that is essentially this whole range that you can see. Basically, Bitcoin above 45,500 is essentially holding the range lows, just like Bitcoin below about $52,000 is, well, below range highs, meaning that technically speaking, on a daily time frame, we are within the context of a pretty hefty downtrend all the way up to a 5-day and a weekly. All of these time frames obviously rather powerful. Then again, your 5-day and your weekly do essentially get your macro direction in Bitcoin to date. And as it stands right now, as long as Bitcoin does hold above 45,500, it's not very wise, at least in my experience, to be looking for the next major move to the downside. However, if that level is lost, and this pretty much supersedes anything else that we're going to talk about soon enough on Bitcoin price action, then I would be looking for, moves back down somewhere around, at minimum, about $43,000, and probably more like another wick somewhere down around what we saw on the 4th of December before the next sort of major bounce on a higher term time frame. Of course, there will be ebbs and flows on short-term time frames along the way if that condition is met. But until then, what's been the trade for the last month? Basically buy 45,000 or 46,000 bucks and sell 52,000 bucks, and basically we have yet again another potential for that right here as well. So I want to be very directly clear in stating this. Yes, I do think that Bitcoin blew less of a chance here. Yes, I do think that there is some hopium available. Yes, I do think that there's actually something rather important to be aware of, which we'll get into soon enough. But until Bitcoin gets back above $52,000, in my experience, it's not very wise to be holding for the big reversal, so to speak, until that happens. And of course, Bitcoin can play out like basically what we saw like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, where Bitcoin bounced up about what, $6,000, more than a 10% move, more like 15% move right there. And it doesn't really mean all that much for a trend. So until Bitcoin pops back up above that last rejected fire range, highs at $52,000. I do not feel comfortable saying that this is like guaranteed to be resolved to the upside and bullish, and talk about, major targets towards what would actually be my next relevant target, which is about 58 to 59,000 bucks. At some point I very likely believe that Bitcoin will get around there, probably even this coming year. But for right now, that is kind of like the big bad area to be aware of. It's the Gandalf resistance, kind of referencing Mr. Gandalf in the background. I just realized that my face is still off. Hey, there I am. Here's old rat face again. But I'm talking about Gandalf over there. He's saying, "You shall not pass." Actually just got to that part in the book as well, and it's like, it's so fucking amazing, man. It's so good, so good. Seriously, if you're looking for a good read, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, I think it's honestly the best one of all of them. But then again, they're all the best ones. That's the problem with it. It's like, how do you choose the best one? I don't know. They're all the best, but The Fellowship might be the best of the best. It's more equal than the others, as we like to say. Anyways, going to the short-term timeframes over here, then we'll bring this baby around. I'll put it that way. Okay, so let's go over here. I'm going to bring it over to Bybit Exchange on this one. By the way, shout out to Bybit. Got my old scam link in the background there. No, it's not a fucking scam. It's an exchange, of course, but it's a great exchange to go get wrecked on. Anyways, sorry, doing a terrible job of representing them. No, it's probably one of the best exchanges for liquidity right now if you're going to be trading on those highly leveraged exchanges, essentially. Anyways, which probably most people shouldn't be doing. Anyways, shorter term timeframes here for Bitcoin. What do we have going on? Well, we do see that range as far as the 4 hour goes is still the same as what we saw yesterday. And despite Bitcoin's big move to the upside yesterday, which we actually did say was likely to happen, it did not clean and clearly close above the range highs, which was just coming in from this $48,000 level right here. You can see some wicks above, that's fine, but no closures above means no range break, at least in the way that I look at things. And well, ending the day on a bit of a sour note right there, it does look like. So this is also in line with the 618 Fibonacci retracement from a fib retracement level from this whole range going on right here. And that does imply that if Bitcoin does start to close back above that region, or, you know, in a more aggressive sense, which I think was probably going to be okay, close above yesterday's wick high, then I would be looking for Bitcoin not just go to about 48,700 again, but very likely 49,500. And that's going to be the next big area for the shorter term timeframes, implying that above there on a closing basis, I would be looking for Bitcoin to give yet again another test towards $52,000. And then, you know, that would put Bitcoin in a very strong or in a very good position of power for the BULAs, as well, any sort of a closure above there, even on a 4 hour in this case, if it's just above the wick range highs, is going to be very likely good enough for me to at minimum be looking for that next move up short term to like 54 to 55, and then more long term looking for that extension towards 58, 59, and probably just upwards and onwards from there after a bit of consolidation after hitting those major areas. But until then, it is a bit more risky right here. Yes, we did have some regular bullish evidence off the lows right here to start the day, but I think the easy portion of that move's already played out. Again, if you're looking at ranges right here, it's quite literally just this $48,000 to the upside. If we do see a 4 hour closure above there, great. I would be looking for that next move. But until then, shorter term time frames actually showing a little bit more of a likelihood to trade back sideways and down towards this blue box territory. Again, that does not imply that Bitcoin is going to break it. Again, it's bounced off the trade for the last month has basically been just buy that region and sell whatever bounds that you can get, of which there's been several, and fair enough. I'm not calling a range breakdown just yet. But if we go over here into our momentum oscillators, I'm just curious if they're all on the same side or not. But 6 hour Stokes are actually nice and vertical right here, or I wouldn't say vertical, but pointed up as long as they're above 46,230. Be aware of where that number is. I mean, it's not necessarily like a range resolution to the downside, so I wouldn't. I wouldn't be too flustered if Bitcoin does actually initiate that. And then if we go down here to the 4 hours, actually technically pointed down right now and playing out a bit of a trend line regression from our last few highs going in from the last week or so of December. And that actually will be remaining with downside momentum as long as we are below 47,900. 3 hour is going to be showing what? Is going to be showing upside with any sort of a closure above 46,200. Bi hourly is also pointed up as long as we're above 46,250 as well. And hourly is also pointed up as long as they're above 46,500, which is interesting because we see a lot of these lower term timeframes kind of pivoted around about 46,200 to 46,500 or so. Specifically, 46,250 is kind of where we're looking at. So if you do see Bitcoin start to close below that region, even on an hourly in this case, very likely at minimum going to retest our range lows yet again, that being the low $45,000 territory, and then you get to hold your breath again if Bitcoin gives you another iteration of that same play. I imagine the 12 hour is probably still freshly turning up as we saw yesterday at above $46,000. So again, it just needs to hold above there into this next closure, which is coming in a little bit less than 3 hours right now. And daily is also still corrective at best with downside momentum as long as we're below 50,800. Of course, CME is not trading over the weekend, but and we're going to get to that in a second. But I should talk about the 2-day, which is also turning down freshly below 48,400 and also rejecting getting out of the bearish control zone, not the best right there. And then the 5-day is going for a full-on correction here as well. So I do look at the higher time frames, that being your 5-day and your weekly, as putting in some major corrections here. The question is, does Bitcoin dump out first, retest our 4th of December wick lows or not? If it does, I'm looking at that I'm looking at confirmations on higher term time frames below 45,500 as the sort of signal for something like that. Until then, we do see extremely short-term time frame momentum oscillators somewhat in unison to the upside, but this is not strong moves. And so how do I want to make this next point? So that is that view. I want to give the bearish view their due diligence first, so forgive me for the BULAs right now, but we should talk about the monthly closure here. So I'm going to go over here into what I refer to as my fundamental chart. I'm going to put it on a monthly as well. And you're going to notice that I have this Christmas colored indicator over here. It's called the accumulation distribution indicator, also the net delta indicator. Basically, the slope change of this has been correlated just about perfectly with all of the macro shifts in direction in Bitcoin's history. And if you're familiar with this sort of explanation of it, just hold on a second. I'm actually going to talk about something new with this as well, but for right now, this will do. And basically, anytime that you see a slope change on it, that is your macro direction shifting, usually within like, a month or two of the actual trend itself. So I'll give you a few examples with this first. We can see this first major shift to the upside coming in from May 2012. That was, of course, calling this low right here. Bitcoin did, essentially just move up into the right, ever since then. And that was, well, quite an easy one. And we didn't get the next sort of slope change on this one until October 2013, which was basically right at the all-time high. It was actually one dildo before the all-time high, leading up into that. So again, it's not like exact, but it gives you a pretty damn good indication of kind of when to be expecting the next major reversal here. And of course, that reversal did hold through for the next about year and a half until we saw the slope change yet again over here in August 2015. And where was that? That was basically on the lows in this little accumulation zone whilst Bitcoin got ready for a move from not 20,000, but 200 to 20,000 bucks. Again, that's $200 to $20,000 price per Bitcoin over the following years. And then of course, when do we see our next slope change over here? It was in February, March 2018. That was basically right after the all-time high, leading into the next year or so of pretty much just straight down. And when do we get our next slope change after that? We get it right here, January 2019. What is that? That is literally right on the $3,100 lows before going up from 3,000 basically to not 41, but 14,000 over here. It actually even stayed with a positive slope the whole way through until January of 2020. Why is that significant? January 2020 started to shift from the January to February closure right here to the downside. To the downside. And as you very likely know, assuming that you've been alive for the past couple of years, which you very likely are if you're watching this, then again, shout out to all the 2-year-olds who are watching this right now. I salute you, but I'm also worried about you significantly. Anyways, that obviously did change actually 1 month before the flu dump, which was a 50% move to the downside. And then what happens after that? When do we see the next slope change? That was in May. In May, of course, Bitcoin did pop back above the $8,500 level. And ever since then, it's just been straight up since 65,000 in this case. And then we saw our most recent slope change to the downside in July of this year. That is suggesting that this, being as the accumulation distribution indicator, has been seeing essentially distribution ever since, this whole region right here. And guess what? Our new tick on this indicator is still having a negative slope. So there's something that I want to talk about here that is, if you're bullish, just turn your fucking eyes away. How about that? Or actually first things first. Okay, a couple things maybe. We can draw 2 regressions on this one. These regressions coming in from both your highs and your lows. And as you can see, it's been pretty damn good. I mean, not exact right there, but around the, around the area, just like your lows over here. It's not perfect regression, but it's around the areas. And you can see that, presumably we'd probably not be looking for an actual shift until this area over here, which would maybe, I couldn't say how early that would happen, but probably unlikely this month, for example. And also what I'd say about this, and this is a little more sombering for the immediate boo loss here in January, I feel quite comfortable in saying that Bitcoin is extremely unlikely to make new all-time highs in the month of January. Why is that? Because we've never seen Bitcoin make new all-time highs on the first tick of a slope change to the upside, especially in the green zone as well. But basically what I mean by this is all of these major slope changes that you do see, they are still like around the lows basically of that accumulation range. Like we've never seen, let me see if can I put this into better terminology. Bitcoin has never made new all-time highs on the first tick of an upward slope change on the accumulation distribution indicator for the monthly specifically, point blank period. So it's extremely unlikely to happen this month if it's going to happen at all, which I do personally think is going to happen over time, but it does look to me like January is going to be corrective at best. And I think best Bitcoin does in January is probably up to 58 to 59,000 bucks in like the perfect scenario right here. Also for what it's worth, we do see some bearish divergence on the MFI, the money flow index, which is very similar to an RSI. It's like an RSI with the volume essentially. And we actually did kind of close a little bit below the 9 exponential average, which is not like a death sentence or anything like that, but kind of indicating a little bit of a short-term correction here nonetheless. Anyways, what I want to get onto now is, do I want to talk about hopium? Do I want to talk about doomium? Again, yeah, Bitcoin's probably going to come back down around here now, isn't it? Again, I am not in any way, shape, or form calling a continuation of this downside move until Bitcoin has officially closed a higher term time frame, namely preferably a daily below the $45,500 range lows. And yes, at that point, I am looking basically somewhere down around that last higher low that Bitcoin did see in September at $40,000. Anywhere above there is okay, actually. And I'll start off with the next hopium first. Yeah, let's do the hopium first. Okay, so let's actually go back to this fundamental chart, and you'll notice that I have this indicator right here, the hash ribbons. This one is actually a community created hash ribbons indicator that allowed for a reverse function on it. You don't necessarily need it for the demonstration that I'm about to do in the point that I'm about to make, but basically, anytime that we've seen the blue buy signal printed on this, the last daily low before that blue buy signature was the macro low before never going lower ever again than that price point. All of them, of which I think we have 16 or 17 iterations in Bitcoin's history, all of them except for one iteration, and that is going to be the one right here, of course, in March 2020 on the 2nd of March. And then of course that one obviously went lower than the prior major low. So I need to dial in this explanation a little bit better. So basically what I'm referring to is the blue buy signals on the hash ribbons indicator. Anytime that we've gotten those blue buy signals, the daily low prior to that blue buy signal, so in this case, if we're just picking out this signal right here, the prior daily low was this low right here at 534. Let me just mark it off really quickly. Has never been traded or closed lower on a daily ever again in the history of Bitcoin. All of these 18 or so iterations, 16 or 18 iterations, except for the one precipitating the flu dump. So again, you can see it right here. Obviously, this was your prior low. Bitcoin never gets anywhere near there. And then same thing over here, right? This was, of course, in January 2018. And where was your last daily low prior to that? Well, it's right here. And of course, Bitcoin gets rather close to it, but never goes below it ever again on a daily closing basis. This one over here, actually same thing, in fact, because your daily low would have been right here, And what do you know? It's just ever so slightly lower than your next higher low on this one over here. The only one that does not fit this is this one right here from March 2020. All the ones are consistent with that. We can just do a few more of the more recent ones, and then I'll kind of tie this into why it's relevant right now. But basically this one over here, where's your last daily low? Basically right here. Does Bitcoin ever go lower than there ever again? No, it does not. This one over here, where's your next daily, where's your prior daily low? That would be right here. Never goes below it ever again. And then, of course, where's our most recent one, which we had a big focus on coming down into early August. This was one of the big things that we were focusing in on this channel. And guess where that last daily low was? It's right here at 37,350. So if this relationship holds true, which again, we have many iterations on this, at least 16, I think more like 18, but I haven't counted it out today and I haven't done this one in a while, which is why I'm kind of struggling with this explanation. We don't expect any sort of daily closures below there. That does not mean that Bitcoin can't kind of wick down. In like a very dire situation, maybe Bitcoin gets a wick down like this and then, closes the day back above that region. Definitely possible. It might not wick down below it at all, but I would not expect Bitcoin to have any daily closures lower than that. Based off of this, the hit rate of it is extremely good. And so that is why I'm putting a bit of faith in that. Now, there's also the other point of hopium here too. And this one is like not like immediate hopium, obviously. So that means that Bitcoin could come down, almost $10,000 from its current posturing. The next one is also quite large as well, another point of hopium right here as well, which I've gone over a million goddamn times now. This is the CME stochastic daily momentum that we've been going over for, the last like month or so, which basically in this one, we have 8 iterations of this signature. of which is represented by all of these vertical blue bars here, and all of those blue vertical bars correlate with the same area being tested on this green horizontal level down here at the 11.5 marker, again specific to CME, and all of them are at least hitting that area once. For the iterations that I really want to focus on, they are hitting it 2 or 3 times, which is similar to our current iteration, which is doing the same thing. It actually hit it 3 times. And so the reason why I think this one is relevant is because this fractal of a signal has been rather consistent amongst the history of Bitcoin throughout the eternity of time. And so put this in your mind's eye right here. Again, just one, in this case, it tested actually twice before the third one gets accepted. And just recognize that signature, because we're going to go to the past one before that. That was relatively similar. That was actually coming off the last flu dump in March 2020. We have the first base getting rejected, the second one gets accepted, and then all good in the hood. And then same thing over here as well in 2019 on the 3100 macro cycle low. This one actually very similar to our current one in the sense that it bases once, bases twice, both rejected, third one accepted, and then off to the races. You'll also notice that amongst all of these, they come within the same context of that technical formation, that being an ascending triangle right here, an ascending triangle right here, and one mega ascending triangle presumably being built over here, as long as Bitcoin does not close below the last weekly higher low, essentially. Okay, so that is rather interesting, or at least I think it's rather interesting. And then you'll notice as well, in these corrections, you'll notice that Bitcoin will, Bitcoin essentially, in this correction over here, which, let me actually do this properly. There we go. Okay. All right. Beautiful. Actually, no, let's actually get that proper. Okay. There we go. In this correction over here, we do see that after that signal is accepted and then it moves around the bullish control zone, around the edge of the bullish control zone, I mark it off with these blue vertical bars right here as well, correlated with this area. And you can see that once it hits that region, it does correct into a higher low fashion, pulling all the way back down to the 618 Fibonacci retracement, and that is your next major low before never going below there ever again until now. And from that time, it did take about 2 months until resolution of this formation. So it took some time. Again, I don't think that Bitcoin's in a threatening posture towards any major macro continuation upside moves anytime soon. To put it bluntly, certainly extremely unlikely in January based off the statistics on this one. Same thing over here in March 2020 as well. See the same thing where Bitcoin gets the initial signal, gets accepted, it moves into this region right here as marked off by the blue vertical bars. You see that it pulls back after hitting that first high into a higher low, exactly where? At the 618 Fibonacci retracement, beautiful. And then it takes another about month and a half before it does bust on through to the upside and never looks back ever again. And then same thing over here on a more recent one, of course. Bitcoin is pretty much getting, the daily stochastic on CME is getting around the same horizontal green area. And what happens right there? Well, Bitcoin put in a high right here, obviously at the range highs. And presumably, if this relationship is going to hold through, we expect Bitcoin to put in a higher low right here, meaning that this will be negated as one of the bigger points of hopium, in my opinion, if Bitcoin does close on new lows, which it has not done just yet. It will officially do that where? Below 45,500, which is, pretty damn close right now. So do be aware of that as well. And of course, where is this current higher low coming in around? It's around the 618 Fibonacci retracement right here as well. So I thought that was rather interesting. Still a point of hopium, but understand that, Bitcoin can still be long-term macro bullish, even whilst coming all the way down towards, low $40,000, even with getting a major wick to the downside and still closing above $40,000 as well. But based off these statistics, of those signals that we have tested, I'd say that it is pretty damn high probability that regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish on Bitcoin, I don't think that we're, at least based off of that, we're probably not going to see any daily closures below, what was it, like $39,000 or so? Let's actually go back on over here. What exactly was it? Yeah, it was about $37,000 actually. So doesn't mean that we can't get some wicks down around there. That's fine, but we'd expect not to see any closures below there. That would be rather problematic. So until then, the hopium is that Bitcoin short term gets another bounce off the same area that we're looking at right now. I mean, we're like literally getting that right now, to be fair. It doesn't look super strong in the current at this current moment in time, but hey, if you do see a short-term time frame closure above the $48,000 pivot, I would be looking for short-term moves back up towards 49.5. And that puts it in a bit of a stronger position for the short and medium term time frames. And we probably open up for the test for at least one more move above $50,000. And then the question is, does Bitcoin get above 52? If it does, then I would negate all of the bearish indications that we have on price action right now. I'd still say that Bitcoin's unlikely to make new all-time highs in January, but it probably trades back up towards 58 to $59,000, and that would look a lot better coming into February. By the same token, if Bitcoin closed below 45,500, extremely likely we're going to see back down around the 1.618 Fibonacci extension here to the downside, or at least a 1.414, which is 43,000, and try for a weekly higher low somewhere right around there, and then still fulfill those other conditions that we spoke about for the long-term hopium. But until then, this is, I keep on going back on over here. The leverage ratio has not been too kind to leveraged longs in particular throughout all of the last year and actually years prior as well, which we actually don't have data for on this particular chart. But, it's just... do be aware that is kind of what's at stake right here. So I think I'll be leaving off right there. I hope that I did this in the most unbiased way as possible to open up your 2022. I do wish you well in whatever you're, looking to do in 2022 in this somewhat faceless video. And with that in mind, I want to wish you well once again. Take care and hopefully see you soon.